Good morning, everybody, those who are present over here and those who are watching live from Tibet House Facebook and Tibet House YouTube channel. Please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Tenzin Doma. I'm working as a program coordinator, Tibet House, New Delhi. And I'll be moderating the first session, which is on quantum objects and subtle and the gross matter in Buddhist philosophy. The concept of subtle and the gross matter has been discussed in Indian philosophy in general, and especially in Buddhist philosophy and the framework for many centuries, and it is related to the perception and the role of sensory organs and the human cognition. And later, the development of neuroscience and the quantum physics shed the new light in this direction. So here we have identified some of the important issues from quantum theory which can be discussed by the quantum physicists, the speakers, and the Buddhist philosophers as a speaker. So therefore, under the blessing of His Holiness the Dalai Lama and the leadership of Venerable Geshe Dorje Damdala, we came to organize these series of conferences such as quantum physics and Buddhist philosophy today, and also we have been organizing the conferences on neuroscience and Buddhist psychology. So before further ado, I would like to request Professor Hirapol Gangnegi, former head of the Department, Buddhist and Tibetan Studies, Namgyal Institute of Buddhist and Tibetan Studies, Gangtok, Sikkim, the chairperson of the first session, and the speakers, Senior Professor R. Ramanathan, retired, Department of Physics, University of Delhi, and Venerable Dr. Pooja Dabralji, Assistant Professor, School of Buddhist Studies, Philosophy and Comparative Religion, and School of Language and Literature, Humanities, Nalanda University, Rajgir, and Dr. Abhishek Manji, Physics and the Applied Mathematics Unit, Indian Statistical Institute, Calcutta, to kindly come up on the dais and take their respective seats, please. Come. Yeah. Thank you. And before I request Professor Gangnegi to proceed the session, I would please allow me to introduce you. Professor Hirapol Gangnegi has completed Master's, MPhil and PhD from the Department of Buddhist Studies, University of Delhi. And he has been the head of the Department Buddhist Studies University from 2014 to 2017. Later, he became the head of the Department Buddhist and Tibetan Studies at Namgyal Institute of Buddhist and Tibetan Studies, Gangtok, Sikkim, from 2019 to 2023. Please, Professor Gangnegi, kindly proceed.
Thank you. It's a good afternoon. Without going into detail, I just straight go with this presentation. So this time topic is being assigned to us as quantum objects, subtle and gross matter in Buddhist philosophy. When it comes to Buddhist philosophy, normally we talked about these two things, When the ontological concern comes on, when there's a matter and the mind. Whether it is a gross, subtle, or whether it is a ultimate or conventional. So they all are almost not other. No. I will quote one shlok from the Shunita Saptati. where it says, Utpat Sthiti Bhang Asti Nasti Heen Samottamam Lokik Vyavara Tu Buddhen Ukta Na Tattvata. So all these things, whether is the Buddha has talked about the duration, origination, destruction, being, non-being, existing, non-existing means, and the low, moderate, and the excellent are free from our worldly conviction. Buddha has not spoken it in the absolute sense. There are other texts which is very important, which I would like to mention it here, is that the Sandhi Nirmochana Sutra, in which the first, second, and third chapter deals with this ultimate reality as such. Wherein ultimately they say, what are those 5 characteristics? Even then the Asanga has mentioned into his texts, which is the 5 characteristics of the ultimate Paramarth Lakshana, inexpressible, non-dual. This transcends the argumentations, completely transcends the differences and non-differences. Then it is in everywhere with the one taste. This is the question of what one taste means. As in the 4 characters we talk about that, Nirvanam Param Shantam. Cessation of the suffering is the absolute reality. That means that in every state, this peace and the shamanona, that is the main objective of the Buddhist studies. So when we talk about the matter in the mind, matter is an ontologically, we know about that. It exists. And it is the 5 senses through that we see it. And as elaborately these 4 key speakers has spoken, the 2 distinguished scholars from Buddhist side and the 2 great distinguished scholars from the physicist side, they have amply and lucidly in terse manner, they have explained their point of view. Therefore, further we have 3 scholars, distinguished scholars, erudite scholars. They are distinguished in their own field. First, my right side, Dr. Pooja Dabral, now Reverend Pooja Dabral, and she is the distinguished scholar of Buddhist studies, especially Nagarjuna's philosophy. So I don't say much about that, her accomplishment and all these things, but she will present her paper. And the left side is the Professor R. Ramanathan from the University of Physics. He is a hardcore physicist. And in the corner side, we have the great scholar who is the Abhishek Mahanji. He is a mathematician as well as a physicist. So this time we have 1 Buddhist scholar and 2 physicists. I hope their presentation will benefit you, and we have been given the 10 minutes time. So within 10 minutes, I wish they should complete their presentations. And last, then the 15 minutes is assigned to the question hour session. So the young scholars and those who want to ask questions, please prepare the straight away questions, not having introduction, giving first their own introduction, ask question, pinpointed question. Okay, no explanation, nothing as such, making a preliminary remarks kind of thing. So with this, I don't spend much time now. We are already late by almost half an hour. So we'll try to finish within the given time. I will request Professor R. Ramanathan, who is a retired professor from the university. So they have introduction is being given here. Now in the brochure also it is given. So I'm not reading outside. Sir. So I will straight request him to give us his own viewpoint on this subject. Professor R. Ramanathan.
You got 15 minutes.
Okay. So, namaste to all my venerable friends and other friends. I'll be talking on a philosophical formulation which is there for quite since maybe in a very rudimentary form from very ancient times, but it has been, made more concrete in the last century. It's about what is known as
So we can use this to change.
not changing. I want, is it how to focus this on that?
This is on this.
Yeah. Next, this one.
So you change to this, that will go.
Okay. So, I'll be talking about panpsychism is a philosophical position adopted by generations of scientists and philosophers who claim that mind and matter are not two different and separate features of existence, but are a dual which exists in unison in all universe. In this presentation, I will elucidate on the idea and show how this offers an elegant model to resolve the mind-matter paradox. So, in the Sutta Nipata of the Pali Canon, there is a dialogue between the Buddha and his disciple. Of course, I read it many years ago, maybe 50 years ago when I was a student, but only from memory I am telling you. I have not read it recently. In the Sutta Nipata of the Pali Canon, there is a dialogue between the Buddha and his disciple, the Venerable Malankaputta, where Malankaputta asks the Tathagata to tell him whether God exists or not, the soul exists or not, the life after death exists or not, to which the Buddha says that it is futile to know the answer. Better to utilize our lives to seek the path towards nirvana. Similar position is adopted by the Austrian logician and philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein. He wrote a very influential book which is the basis of modern linguistics and symbolic logic in the last century, who says in his book Tractatus Logico-Philosophicus, that was the name of the book, there he says, similar to what the Tathagata told his disciple Malankaputta, whereof we cannot speak, thereof we must remain silent. So it is. So with that admonition of a very great Tathagata and a great logician Ludwig Wittgenstein, I must say that we have to tread this area with great caution. Our perception of our existence and our basic awareness of ourself and the outer world is due to the consciousness we are endowed with from the time of our arrival in the world in our mother's womb. What could be its source? Is it unique to us, or is it a universal phenomena? Is the answer to this an unspeakable one, the way Wittgenstein says? Many have asked these questions over the ages. The well-known physicist, late Freeman Dyson was one of the architects of the discipline of quantum electrodynamics. He, along with Feynman, Schwinger, and Tominaga, they constructed the theory of electrodynamics, quantum electrodynamics. And incidentally, Professor Freeman Dyson is the guru of my guru. Because my PhD supervisor, Professor A.N. Mitra, who passed away 2 years ago, his PhD supervisor in Cornell was Professor Dyson. And he has written he was a multifaceted genius, and he has published many books on philosophy of science. In one of these books, which is named Disturbing the Universe, that's the book, there in the introduction he says, the process of human consciousness differs only in degree, but not in kind, from the processes of choice between quantum states, which we call chance, when made by an electron. Quantum chance is better framed as quantum choice. Actually, you attribute the idea of choice only to sentient beings like human beings. But he says that the way the quantum is seen to behave, the electron is seen to behave in quantum electrodynamics, is not very different from how we behave in acquiring knowledge about the external world. Only it's a matter of degree. The physicist David Bohm, in an earlier book, says the ability of form to be active is the most characteristic feature of mind. And we have something that is mind-like already with the electron. The English philosopher Alfred North Whitehead also wrote a book early in the last century, which is also called Tractatus Philosophicus. Also gave a detailed thesis on the pervasiveness of consciousness in all the universe, starting from the electron in his book Science and the Modern World. The main problem arises from the dominant belief that matter and mind are two separate essences of existence. The animate and the inanimate are totally different in all aspects. This is partly due to the dominant Aristotelian separation of mind and matter that has influenced thought over the past 2 millennia. The 17th century German mathematician and philosopher Leibniz tried to solve this by postulating a mind-matter dual, which is called a monad, as being the base of all phenomenal world. He was perhaps one of the first panpsychic philosophers who tried to put it in a very logical scheme. In the Indic philosophical discourse of all Vedantic, Buddhist and Jain schools of thought, matter was always conceived as some kind of projection of the mind. Though the connection was never clearly made, one could, however, with hindsight, view it as a panpsychic philosophical position. Our consciousness not only makes us aware, but also gives us the discrimination to sense information, which is possible only if there is a choice to be made, for which the prerequisite is the existence of a dual, a this and a that, a yes or a no, a 0 or 1, a Boolean doublet. This is a Boolean doublet. So it is possible that a complex discriminating consciousness could be built from a primordial rudimentary consciousness at the level of elementary matter. When the electron interacts with another electron through the quantum field, it makes a choice which a physicist calls a probability of interaction. As the physicist Dyson pointed out, this has all the features of a choice made by us in a more complex interaction. It is the quantum nature of the interaction that makes it possible to interpret the interaction of an electron as a choice. Otherwise, it would be a certain interaction with no choice involved. The choice making is what you call free will. But this aspect has been brought into being only because of the quantum nature of the elementary particles. This diagram is what is called Feynman diagram. This shows the black lines show the E represents the electron. This is just a diagrammatic, picturization of a real event of which we, as Professor Damdula said, we just can only picturize what could be happening at a microscopic level. We do not know what is actually happening there. But this picturization gives you what the electrodynamist Feynman, he invented this diagram. The two electrons interact through a gamma, which is a representation of the field photon. Now this is just a picturization. This is what one electron interacts with another electron by throwing out a photon. What is the basic mechanism by which a gamma photon is thrown out by an electron and it feels another photon, another electron? That is not known. But what this comes about because of the idea of a field concept. The field is a infinitely extended sea or ocean of what are called harmonic oscillators, and each oscillator for different fields has different kinds of oscillations. And basically these are the oscillations which come out of the field, and once actualization occurs, the photon becomes a particle. The quanta becomes a particle. That is how the field concept is introduced. Now the electron is bristling with field photons, and it is through those field photons it is able to see whether there is another electron or not in its vicinity. So this is the field picture. But actually that is how we also find out whether the external world exists or not. When we touch this table, we are doing it, the actual process is a electromechanical process. The electrons in our tissues, it touches the electrons in the body of this object, and they repel each other, and that repulsion is being transmitted through neurotransmitters to the brain, and we see the touch, and we are bristling with all kinds of fields, and it is just concentrated because our senses are so gross, we cannot see that our bristling fields extend far above, beyond our bodies. But the concentration is limited to, in our visual field, it is limited to this body. So we are trillions of, cells gathered together. We continually amass material from the external world and also leave out material to the external world. So this is an organic system which continuously changes its content, but it remains the same as a whole as far as our short-term perception goes. But we are all the time changing our content, and all the material that has been amassed in our body was many, many billions of years ago in the core of some star. So we are also having the same, we feel the external world only through the same mechanism with which the electron also feels the existence of a neighboring electron. It's not different. But when the elementary particles are gathered in large numbers, in terms of atoms and elements and then cells and all that, the configuration makes its own circuits which result in a more complex kind of sensation. So that is the basis of the panpsychic hypothesis. In the scientific worldview today, we are an organism built out of the gross matter of the universe, and our consciousness and mind are an emergent phenomena arising from the assembly of atoms with their electrons in our bodies. From the information gleaned from the external world by science so far, it seems plausible that the panpsychic hypothesis is at the base of a conscious universe arising out of a quantum field, which seems to be the source of our consciousness at the primordial level. You may call it the Shunyata of Nagarjuna, or just a field which is both material and conscious. There are groups of scientists around the world trying to devise experiments to test the panpsychic hypothesis, and hopefully it may emerge from a philosophical hypothesis to a scientific one in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Ramanathanji. He has put together with matter and mind in Buddhist terminology, Nam and Ru, Ming and Zu, how the one is ontological part, other is the epistemological part, and beautifully webbed and make it simplest possible way to make such as Buddhist scholars to understand about that. Thank you so much for making this presentation, sir, so much. It was so simple, easier. So in this regard, I use small quote now. Again, referring it to the Sandhi Nirmochana, where we should ask the Buddha. Buddha replied, I have realized the ultimate, which is subtle, extremely subtle, profound, extremely profound, and difficult to realize, which is a character that completely transcends difference and non-difference. Probably what Professor wanted to say about that now. Thank you so much for making this so simple and easier. Now I will request Venerable Dr. Pooja Dubralji. She will make her presentation, not giving much introduction about her. It's already given there. So saving the time, please go ahead with your presentation.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I would like to start by quoting Acharya Thiknak, who is also renowned as father of Buddhist logic. So in his text Pramana Samuchaya, the verse goes like this. Pramana bhutai jagat hiteshine pranamya shakhe sugatai tayane. So in these two lines in English it reads as, the one who has transformed into the reliable guide, motivated by altruism to benefit sentient beings, the teacher Sugata and protector, to you I make prostrations. So in these two lines, Acharya Thiknak encapsulates the entire transformation of Prince Siddhartha into a fully awakened one, which is also known as a state of complete cessation of suffering and infinite bliss and peace. So, and then as my presentation goes, we'll see that in many of the sutras, Buddha taught about the matter and particles and the physical form. And then the purpose is indicated in these two lines, that finally the purpose of all the Buddha's teaching is twofold, which is to attain the state of complete cessation of fears or suffering, and the attainment of a state of infinite peace and bliss, which my previous panelist explained very beautifully. So before I go into my topic, which is matter form from the perspective of Buddhist philosophy, let me start by thanking Venerable Geshe Dorje Damdula and Tibet House for always being so kind, for giving me this opportunity to share my views. And also I feel very honored to share the dais with distinguished experts in their respective fields. And also it gives me immense pleasure to present this paper in this particular panel where Professor Hirapol Gangnegiji, who I have a very long association, who accepted me first as his PhD student, then as a senior colleague, being head of the department, and also always being a kind well-wisher. So now the topic of today's talk is matter form from the perspective of Buddhist philosophy. I'm so sorry for the formatting, but as we can see, and the time is very limited, only 15 minutes, so I have to jump, but I would like to give more sources for scholars to have some comparative study. So as we can see in the Rupa Sutta, the sutra name, or sutta in Pali and sutra in Sanskrit, Buddha said, monks' forms are inconsistent, changeable, alterable. Then in Arya Vinaya Vinishya Upali Pariprachana Sutra, Buddha said, various delightful flowers blossom and the sparkling supreme golden abode stands so alluring. For none of these is there a creator. They are posited by the power of thought. It is through conceptualization that the world is imputed. And also in Dhammapad, which is the collection of Buddha's words in Buddha's sutras in verse form, Buddha said, all forms are unreal. One who knows and sees become passive in pain. This is the way that leads to purity. So finally, this extensive explanation of the form, matter, and what constitutes the form is to attain the purity, which is, as I said, and the previous, great teachers and scholars mentioned that the purpose is to attain the state of cessation of suffering and happiness. Now, before I go to the topic, let me just give you a broad perspective of where this topic lies. So as we know, anything that exists is known as phenomena. And then there are different ways of classifying phenomena. In fact, in many of the Buddhist sutras and later commentaries, there are different ways of classifying. One way is, as it comes in, the Buddhist scholars would know, the entire Abhidhamma Pitaka has 7 texts. And one of the texts, Dhammasangani, you will see the presentation of, and also in Acharya Buddha Ghosh, Vishuddhi Magh, as well as in Acharya Vasubandhu's Abhidhamma Ghosh, you will see how the phenomena are divided into 2 major categories. The phenomena in Pali they call Rupa Dhamma and Arupa Dhamma, in Sanskrit Rupa Dharma and Arupa Dharma. And the distinction is the forms or the phenomena, the form that have some physical matter, whereas those phenomena which do not have physical matter. So from this we have to learn that whatever we experience around us does not only confine to the physical matter. There are phenomena or things which do not have any physical matter. Then another very interesting way of classifying phenomena is into 2, impermanent phenomena and permanent phenomena. And impermanent phenomena means the phenomena that undergo change, can further be classified under 3, form, mind and mental factors, and non-associated compositional factors. So the category which I am going to speak on is the form, whereas we have the category of phenomena which are not form but do exist, such as mind and mental factor, all the mental experiences. Then the non-associated compositional factor, which is a very interesting category. It simply means those impermanent phenomena which does not belong to form and mind. For example, the self, the person, time, and many other. Okay, now the form. So how form is defined in Buddhist treatises, in sutras, as well as many commentaries. So I picked up the definition from Acharya Chandrakirti, who is a great 7th century Nalanda master. In his text, in his well-known formulation by the name Madhyamika Avatar, the entry into the middle way, which talks about the Shunyata extensively, he defined the form as such. Form possesses the characteristics of that capable of materiality, and those who are from the Buddhist philosophy side, they know sometimes it is defined as form is something which is suitable as a form. So then what is the meaning of something being capable of materiality or suitable as a form? So this explanation comes in further commentaries, such as in Acharya Vasubandhu's Abhidharma Ghosh. So he explains that capable of materiality means something which is capable of being induced to change when it comes in contact with different particles. So now, in simple terms, the form means something that is constituted of particles, and also we can say that something that is constituted of material substance in a very simple language. Now this form can further be classified under two major categories. Again, there are different ways of classifying form. One very comprehensive way of classifying matter is into the four great elements, the elementary elements, and then those that are derived from these elements known as element derivative. In Sanskrit, Mahabhut and Upadaya. And these are the sources that I cited where you can find this, where does this come from Buddhist treatises. For example, Dhammasangani, one of the major texts from the 7 texts of the Abhidhamma Pitaka, and also in Acharya Buddha Ghosh Vishuddhimagga, you will find this classification of form in two categories, primary element and the mental derivatives. So now I'll quickly go through them because the previous panelists already mentioned about them, that primary elements are the 4, earth, water, fire, wind, and these are the ultimate constituents of all the physical world that we experience. And then, okay, so if somebody wants to know where in sutras these 4 elements are taught, and then in many sutras, Sanskrit Pali sutras, you will find where Buddha taught these 4 elements and their function, nature, and how they come together to make the macroscopic world in detail. Some of the sutras, Mahati Padopama Sutta, then also in Pragyaparamita Sutra in 25,000 lines, and also in Mahasatipatthana Sutta. So these are the nature, these are the 4 elements and their essential nature and functions as explained in Buddhist scriptures. So we can see that they are becoming progressively subtler, earth, water, fire, and wind. And then the essential nature of earth is to give some solidity to the object, and then function is to support, water to moisten, and function is to bind, fire to have the warmth, and function is to mature the object, and then wind element, the essential nature is lightness, and mobility is the function. Okay, and then when these elements, these 4 great elements, they come together in different configuration, then the element derivatives come into being. So whatever physical that we experience around us, as we discussed in the part of the inaugural session, there are different kinds. For example, the objects of the 5 senses, the object of the 5 sensory consciousnesses, such as visual objects, sound, smell, taste, tactile objects, as well as the 5 sense powers, the mediums through which we experience these objects. These are also physical matter. And besides this, there are something called, although they are the objects of they are known as mental objects, but they have a very subtle physical form known as non-revealing form, and also the form that one acquires through meditative concentrations. So they are all physical forms and are derived from the 4 great elements. And then to the question, as I mentioned, that how the macroscopic world comes into being from these 4 great elements. In many of the sutras, such as Lalita Vistar Sutra, in English, Extensive Display Sutra, and as well as Acharya Vasubandhu's Abhidharma Ghosh, there is a mention of the principle of agglomeration of particles, also known as atomic agglomeration. And there it explained how these different particles, they come into being in different configuration, and then the macroscopic objects come into being. And then in these sutras, I'm not going to read because it will take time. But there are many interesting specifications, such as the size of a sun ray particle, size of a dust particle, size of snow particle are being described. So finally, what I find very interesting to share here, that all Buddhist schools, as the Venerable Geshe Nawang Samtela mentioned in his inaugural speech, that there are 4 major schools of Buddhist metaphysics, Vaibhashika, Sautantrika, Chittamatra, and Madhyamika school. So they have their own unique presentation of what is the matter and particle, and how this material substance is presented in their philosophy. So now when it comes to the particle, so what's to school, Vaibhashika and Sautantrika, also known as foundational Buddhist schools, they accept that finally all the physical world, all the physical matter is reducible to the most fundamental, irreducible constituents, which they call partless particles. So this comes from Acharya Vasubandhu's Abhidharma Ghosh, where it says, a partless particle, a syllable, and a single moment are the smallest unit of matter, of word, and of time, respectively. So in simple terms, Vaibhashika and Sautantrika school, they believe in a particle which is partless in nature. And this is the ultimate constituent of all the macroscopic physical objects. So what is the nature of such a particle? This comes in many commentaries, and one of the very renowned work known as Mahavibhasha, attributed to Katnayaniputra, and this explanation comes. In fact, this is a very important text which summarizes the essential subject matter of the 7th text of the Abhidharmapita. Here he explains that this partless particle is the finest or smallest constituent of matter. It has no spatial dimension, means it has no parts in space. It never exists on its own, but only in combination of other particles. And it consists of at least 8 substances. What are they? The 4 great elements and the 4 element derivative, form, smell, taste, and tangibility. So now this is the presentation. That was the acceptance of the partless particles, means a particle which does not have any further parts is something confined to the first 2 Buddhist schools, also known as foundational Buddhist schools, Vaibhashika and Sautantrika. Whereas when we come to the higher Buddhist schools, and as you know, when we say higher Buddhist school, it doesn't mean that they are higher in any other reason, but the reason is that they present the most subtle and a very profound ontological reality. So the 2 higher Buddhist schools, Chittamatra and Madhyamika, they refute the existence of such a partless particle. They accept that the physical objects are composed of particles, but they do not accept the existence of a partless particle. And then where is that formulation where that has been rejected? So there are many Buddhist texts. For example, Acharya Aryadeva's 400 verses, Chatushtaka Shastra Karika, and also in Acharya Vasubandhu's text, well-known text, Vimshika, in English 20 stanzas. There is one verse where he uses a logical assertion to explain that how such a partless particle is not possible. So I'll read it for everyone here. Because of being simultaneously surrounded by 6 other particles, the central subtle particle is found to have 6 parts. If these 6 parts have the same spatial dimension, a massive object will conflate into a size of just a minute particle. So what Acharya Vasubandhu is arguing here is that however minute a particle is, should have parts. In other words, there is no partless particle. And then he says that if that is not accepted, we cannot really account for the macroscopic world. So what is the reason behind it? Because he says that let's say even any object, physical object such as this mic, this is constituted of particles when we go at the elementary, at the subtler level. And then this pool of particles, so any particle that you pick up must be surrounded by several other particles. So let's say 6 other particles, and why 6? Because 4 in 4 cardinal direction, 1 above, 1 down. So then this 6, if we say that this central particle does not have part, then the side of this central particle, which, okay, we can use this diagram. This does not come from the text, but I used to explain it. So central particle, if it does not have any part, if we accept that, that reason, then the side of the central particle which faces or which meets the particle in the north should be the side which faces the particle in the south. So then the particle in the north and particle in the south, they two will meet. And if they two will meet, then the central particle will disappear. If that is accepted, then all the particle will keep on conflating and disappearing. And then one cannot account for a massive object such as a mountain. So he's explained that we make a distinction between a mountain and a flower on the basis of the size. But if the particles of the mountain, they keep on conflating into each other, we cannot account for a massive object like mountain. So therefore, he explains that however minute a particle is, it should have 6 parts, at least 6 parts within. So this is the presentation accepted by the higher schools like Chittamatra and Madhyamika, who do not accept the partless particle. But do they reject particle? The answer is no. They accept that the physical objects, they are made up of particles, but these particles have further parts. Okay, so now coming to the Chittamatra school. So the foundational philosophy of Chittamatra, as it is taught by Buddha Shakyamuni in Dashabhumi Sutra, Sutra of the 10 Bhumis, it says, it is thus, this world of 3 realms is mind only. So their foundational philosophy is that everything is the nature of mind. That's why the school is called Chittamatra, the mind only school. So when this school presents the philosophy that everything is the nature of the mind, and when they ask that what is their take on physical particles or the physical objects, then within the Chittamatra school, the scholars differ. The part of the Chittamatra scholars, they maintain that since everything is just the nature of mind and nothing exists external to the mind, And it is only due to ignorance that we see things external to the mind. Finally, physical objects do not have any physical substance, or they are not constituted of physical particles. They are just the nature of mind. Whereas the other part of Chittamatra scholars, they maintain that no, there is no contradiction in accepting the physical objects having particles, made up of particles. At the same time, having the nature of mind. So they maintain that physical objects, they are composed of physical particles. At the same time, they are the nature of the mind. Then coming to the Madhyamika school, and within Madhyamika school, because the limitation of the time, I'll confine to the Prasangika Madhyamika. So these are coming from the Arya Vinaya Vinishya Upali Pariprashana Sutra, where Buddha clearly mentioned, in dependence on light, the eye sees visual forms, both pleasing and unpleasant. Since it sees depending on the right condition, the eye in fact never sees anything intrinsically. Pleasant sound that are heard never actually enter the ear. Their entry is not observable. Sound occurs through the force of concepts. In short, all these phenomena have explained using words to label through mental conceptualization and account for them. So in this, we might get confused that do Prasangikas, the highest Buddhist school, do they accept physical matter or not? The answer is yes, they accept physical matter, and they accept that physical objects are made up of particles. But when it comes to the nature, the true, ultimate or ontological nature of these physical matter, even the visual forms, they do not have any intrinsic nature, or they do not exist from the object side. So the general understanding, in a very vernacular sense, when we talk about the substance in the conventional world, we think of something which exists from the object and not by the subject. So when it comes to this understanding of substance, this school is very unique in terms of rejecting the substance which is purely existing from the object. So the school, Madhyamika school, particularly Prasangika Madhyamika, they deny the objectivity at all degrees, at all level, and therefore they deny the particles, the material objects to have any intrinsic substance or intrinsic nature. So therefore, here, if you really want to understand how Madhyamika explains, or particularly Prasangika Madhyamika, they explain that the particles are composed of, the physical matter is composed of particles. At the same time, these particles have no intrinsic nature or objective nature. One has to understand the presentation of the two truths, how the conventional, all the particles, be it gross physical objects such as this mic, this hall, this podium, or the elementary particles like, electrons, protons, neutrons, when we do not analyze them through ultimate analysis, going deeper into analysis, through closer inspection, we'll continue to see their conventional nature, which I explained and accepted by all the Buddhist schools, that they are impermanent in nature, they have specific mass, charge, spin. But when it comes to their ontological reality or ultimate nature, this school confines that, okay, when you analyze them, going through closer inspection, then you realize that, okay, none of these particles, be grosser physical objects or the elementary particles, they do not have any intrinsic nature, or they do not exist objectively, but they are purely they exist purely through mental projection. So this is the Madhyamika school. And then not only sutra system, but also in the tantric treatises, in Buddhist tantric treatises such as Sri Kalachakra Tantra, there is an extensive explanation of the form, and particularly very subtle form, where they explain the existence of the space particles, on which basis they explain the destruction of a universe, and also it's coming after coming into being through space particle, giving rise to grosser particles. Okay, and then so finally the conclusion from my presentation is that within the Buddhist schools, there are four major Buddhist schools of metaphysics: Vaibhashika, Sautantrika, Chittamatra, and Madhyamika. So Vaibhashika, so when it comes to talking about the material substance or the particles in terms of something constituted of physical matter or particles, this is fairly accepted by all the Buddhist schools. Whereas when it comes to the material substance, understanding of the material substance in the context of something as external to the perceiving mind and not being the nature of mind, this is something which the Chittamatra school of Buddhism does not accept, because they maintain that everything is the nature of mind. And then when it comes to understanding of the material substance in a very vernacular sense to mean something from the object and not projected by mind, this is something not accepted by the Prasangika school, Prasangika Madhyamika school. So with this, I conclude. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Poojaji. So thank you so much for making this presentation so interesting, and you have surveyed from all the gamut of the Buddhist onto a metaphysical standpoint, no? Coming down to even the Vajrayana Buddhism, Tantric Buddhism as such. No? But here, since he has quoted this thing, now I will also quote that in the Guhya Samaja, it says, you know, Sarv bhav vigatam sakand dhatu ayatana grahe grahak varjitam dharam niratame samtaya swachit adya upannam shunyata swabhavam iti. This is something, you know, it's in all those phenomenal things, you know, existence of those. And the second dhatu ayatan means objective, and this base of objective, you know, and the grasp and grasper, and because of this dharam niratamya, substancelessness of the phenomenal thing, all things are being same. Probably as such, Professor was trying to say how the particles and touching with this, how they interact with them, you know. Because dharam niratamya samta means all things are, you know, it's substantive. So therefore all are the same. So swachit adyatpannam means oneself is primordial, you know. Then this is the nature of the shunyata. Shunyata gives ample space, as our the key speakers have very elaborately stated about this thing. Thank you so much, Poojaji. You have made it so clear about this, giving all the four tradition of these Buddhist studies, what they think about this ontological and epistemological viewpoint. Thank you so much. And with this, I don't spend much more time, and straight away go to our third scholars, who is erudite scholar in his own field, who is, as I said, is a mathematician as well as the physicist. He will make his presentation. Without spending much time, please make your presentation. Dr. Abhishek Raji.
How to make it full screen?
This is the full screen. This is the full
This is full screen,
Yeah.
so can I change the slides?
Yeah. This one. Yeah.
Hello everybody. Thank you to the coordinators for welcoming me here, inviting me, and giving the opportunity to talk here. So let me directly go to my slides and save some time. Is time completely relative in relativity? Okay, so this is the topic of today's talk. The talk is very short and I'm going to finish within 10 minutes, I think. Okay, so this is just a prelude to what I'm going to talk about. We have been discussing today a lot about this matter and time, which is the theme of this conference. But if you see physics, which is my background, in 1905, a paradigm shift came into physics. So before that, there was only one concept of time which was practiced in physics, and that is known as the Newtonian physics, or that started from Galileo as well. That is, time is same for all. Okay, so that's what I'm going to talk about. That's what I'm going to tell as absolute time here. And in 1905, Einstein came in and he changed the perspective. There were other scientists as well, like Lorentz and Poincaré, but I'll talk about Einstein only. So what are these formulas? Let me not go into the details of these mathematical formulas, but it is just a presentation of what I said in words. So if there are two inertial observers, that is you and me, moving with a relative constant velocity, so that is a pair of inertial observers, then before 1905, the mathematical formula was T prime equals to T. And then what Einstein gave was this following: T prime equals to T by root over of 1 minus V square by C square. So now you can clearly categorize time into two types, that is absolute time and relative time. One is pre-1905 and one is post-1905. And the general conception is either time is absolute or time is relative, as taught in physics. So the question arises, and that is what I'm going to analyze, is Einstein's reasoning completely free from the use of absolute time? Okay. So, well, you don't need to read through all this. This is just to convince you that I'm not bluffing around here. This is an excerpt exactly from the English translation of Einstein's 1905 paper on the electrodynamics of moving bodies. And here, this is the relevant expert which I took, where he talked about time and explained it in terms of simultaneous events. That is, if you say that Abhishek is speaking on the dais right now, and the talk started at 12:15 p.m., then you must be comparing my presence here and the cognition of the time in your watch. So this is what called Einstein called as simultaneous events. I'm going to visualize all this through pictures, okay? But let me just go through one of these things. And then he explained that, okay, so when we are far away from each other, for example, I am now in Delhi and my family is in Kolkata, then how can they know that I am talking here at this time? Then we have to communicate through some signal. That's what we do through phones. Okay, so here we are going to talk about light signals. At that time, there was no phone. So, okay, so, but the most important thing is that while comparing things, we need to synchronize our clocks first. Otherwise, there is no point of talking about time. Okay, so this excerpt which you are seeing, it is about the definition of synchronous clocks, which was given in the introductory section. This excerpt is from the introductory section of Einstein's article. And while defining these synchronous clocks, Einstein concluded with this sentence written in purple. We assume that this definition of synchronism is free from contradictions. So while I was teaching in ISI in the last few years, I used to teach special relativity. So this bothered me a lot. So why did he need to assume that there are no contradictions? Okay, if there is none. So certainly there are some contradictions. But if there are those contradictions, what are those? Because those are not written in any textbooks. And this you must trust me. You can open any textbook, the standard textbooks of special relativity, they don't explain those things. So I had to go into Einstein's paper and analyze that. So this is the analysis in the next two slides, which I am going to do for you. This is just the visualization of what was written in that dirty excerpt. Okay. So at first, Einstein started like this. So the concept of time arises for an observer from simultaneous events, as I explained. So occurring in immediate proximity. Okay. So that is what I said, that we can talk about simultaneous clocks here or synchronous clocks, but far away from here we can't talk about it. So this is Einstein's explanation. So suppose the train arrives at the station and the position of the hands in our clock, it points to the 7 o'clock, for example. So we say that the train arrived at 7 o'clock. But a lot of processes are going in here. Okay, I have to look at the clock, I have to look at the train. So there is a time spent there. So there is a sense of uncertainty going on here. Okay. So what Einstein did was that he approximated this whole concept, which is happening within a region and it itself taking a lot of time. He approximated this as a point. Okay, a region to a point. And that is what we see in Google Maps when we actually zoom in and zoom out. That's what we do. It's scale dependence of phenomena. So what he did was that he approximated this as a region, the region as a point, say P, and associated with this point an observer OP, a clock CP, whatever clock you are wearing or holding, and then a concept of time, P time. Okay, that is for each one of us, personally, we have a concept of time which you determine by watching our clock, and suppose the ant is crawling on your table. So at this point of time, the ant is here. At this point of time, ant is here. Okay, so this is your sense of time which is given in your proximity. Now what Einstein did was that he introduced two observers who are now at far away places. So this is an example I have given here so that you can understand in terms of numbers. So a region which is approximated as a point A, which contains an observer OA, a clock CA, and let us name that personal time or exclusive time for that observer as A time. Okay. And suppose this observer OA holds a light source like a torch or a laser pointer. Okay. And then there is another point B, which is again in a different region, which is very far away from A. But there is an observer B holding a clock CB, and the time which observer B has is B time. And this observer B has a light reflector and at the same time a light detector, that when light comes it can detect. Then Einstein made another assumption. CA resembles CB. So I already assume that the clock which you are holding, it resembles mine. Okay. And then he said A time and B time incomparable without further assumption. Okay. Now my question is, who compares or knows this resemblance and these assertions like it is incomparable or not? Okay. Then he goes on and says, okay, let us assume now that there is a common time for OA and OB, which I am naming we time for convenience. So again the question, who is we? If you take my name, or slash, what is common? Because just now I have said that we can't compare A time and B time. Well, Einstein has said it. So that's why these questions are come. So now then he performed an imaginary physical experiment. These are his words, imaginary and physical. It was written like that. So perform imaginary and physical experiment. And what is that? So suppose at A time TA, the observer at A throws away some light or light quantum or whatever you say, or puts on his torch. So the light goes and travels to B, and at B the observer receives that light at the B time TB. Why I am saying A time B time? Because B does not know when A has put his switched on his torch. Okay. So at that B time TB, the light is also reflected, and it comes back and it is received by observer A again at TA prime. Sorry, this should be T prime A in the picture. There is a mistake. And then with this experiment, now Einstein assumed the following. That is, this we time or the common time which he assumed, this is now equated to these personal times which are not comparable. That is delta T we A to B, that is the time taken by light for traveling from point A to point B, it is equals to TB minus TA. Okay. And for the time taken by light for coming back from B to A is delta T we B to A equals to T prime A minus TB. So now there are two remarks which I have added, and these are the curiosities of course, that incomparable A time and B time compared by assumption. Okay. And then common time, that is delta T we, these are related to these exclusive or personal times. Okay. Because these calculation can't be done by either OA or OB, because it is impossible for them to know what each other is doing, either of them. So then he defined what is meant by synchronous clocks, which we trivially take as an assumption that we know what is there in your clock and what is going on. And the synchronous clock's definition is that CA and CB are synchronous if and only if this delta T we A to B equals to delta T we B to A. That is, the time light takes for going to A to B is the same for the light to come back from B to A. And that is given now in terms of these personal times, or which are exclusively known in by A and B. That is TB minus TA equals to T prime A minus TB. Then finally he concluded with this assumption that we assume that this definition of synchronism is free from contradictions. So I think this reveals Einstein's awareness of the contradictions, but the question is why we should say that these are contradictions. Why don't we categorize and admit that time is neither relative nor not relative or absolute? It is somewhere in the middle. We can't assert to a particular and fixed permanent logical statement that this is that and this is finished, it is absolute. It's not like that. it is somewhere in between. So, and this goes on as well for we. The self is neither personal nor impersonal, and that is what we always talk in Eastern philosophy. So these were my observations, and I think I have tried to make it as clear as possible with this short talk. So this is my take from my zero knowledge on Buddhism. I am not a philosopher, but whatever I have done and read, so this is my conclusion. The middle way asserts an assertion can be true or either true or false. Neither true nor false, both true and false. So similarly, we can conclude from these observations that what we mean by we can be either OA or OB, neither OA nor OB, both OA and OB. It's already done. And finally, time can be either relative or exclusive or local. This is a very particular term which is used in quantum physics, but whatever I have discussed, it has nothing to do with quantum mechanics. This is just experience and, if I may say, self-inquiry, that what I mean by, okay, so what I say. And of course, yeah, relative or it can be absolute, common, global, neither relative nor absolute, both relative and absolute. And since there is no conclusion, as you can see, my humble reasoning is empty of itself. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Maji ji, Abhishek ji. You have made it so simple. कहाँ चले गए? अच्छा इधर हैं. इतना simple बनाया आपने. Even I don't know anything about this physics, some quantum physics, but you made it so simple. Whatever you talked about that. The issue is that now whether the ultimate and the conventional reality or truth is relative or ultimate is as an absolute. I keep on discussing with the Puja ji. But if it is the absolute, what you call ultimate is, then it is depending upon the conventional reality. So how that can be absolute? If it is not absolute, then we need to have something in between position. So is that something, which can say that it is because absolute and this relative are related to each other and they have been something, same in nature when you talk about that because it's subject to the consciousness. If it is so, then this ultimately this Mayan text says they have to transcend about even the conventional and ultimate reality as such. You have to transcend that. After transcending, what will you going to gain it in? That is something which is suchness as such. Because suchness is a common thing which is going to link between the conventional reality and ultimate reality. So this has to be realized, as I referred earlier. Dharam niratamya samtaya. Because all the phenomenal things are having the same nature. If it is same nature, means that whatever you have in nature, ultimate sense, in the sense last. So the material thing is also having the same kind. That's why we can put together an ultimate cessation. Okay, sorry, time is so short, it has gone. Question hour is very important in Buddhism because Nalanda tradition is based exclusively on the question hour session. Buddhist teaching is also about the questions hour. If you go to the Buddhist texts, literary texts now, you can see Bodhisattva was asking question, Buddha is responding. All are in question hour sessions. So therefore, a good student means who have a curiosity, who ask the pariprashna, ask the question and counter questions. So I request the young scholars to make their query straight. I'm told that there's only 2 questions we can have it. So who will decide these 2 questions? So please, any 2 questions? Simple and straight. कैसा बताऊं आपने? This is very difficult question. Haji? Sir, that's actually this question hour session is exclusively designed for the young scholars. We would love to listen to you. Yes. पहले किसने उठाया? First, ladies first. One lady is out backside there.
Always ladies first.
Yes.
Greetings everyone, my name is Jikmet and I'm a 3rd year student from forensic background, forensic physics actually. So my question is to Dr. Pooja. You explained it very well, ma'am, thank you. But you mentioned about this known associated compositional factors. Like, I wanted to relate it with what Geshe Damdullah had said, that he mentioned that form is not other than emptiness and emptiness is not other than form. So I wanted to relate to that. Thank you.
पूजा जी आप वही खड़े हो जाओ बोलो यहाँ ये लो ये आई करने नहीं नहीं आए
Thank you for this question. It's a beautiful question, and I'm very glad that you noticed that part, which I did very fast. So yes, so let me put it technically first. So non-associated compositional factor, if you can go to the slide back, it is a part of the impermanent phenomena. So, and as I explained, why it is called non-associated compositional factor. Compositional factor means something which is composed of particles, right? So it's impermanent phenomena. But then why non-associated? What does it mean? So it means some impermanent phenomena which is not associated with form or mind. So it's, first of all, it has to be impermanent, and secondly, which is not form and not even mind. Then which category of phenomena they fall? So all those phenomena which are impermanent in nature, at the same time not physical matter and not even mental experiences, they are known as non-associated compositional factors, such as the self. Person. For example, yourself. You have body, you have mind, you have form, you have mind, but you are not form and you are not mind. So what is this self like? So this is impermanent in nature because it changes. Yesterday you could be very angry, today could be very compassionate. So it's this self changes, but at the same time, this is not form and not mind. It has form and mind. So what is it? This is a non-associated compositional factor. So this is one of the example. And then on the other side, Venerable Geshe-la explained from Heart Sutra, Pragyaparamita Hridaya Sutra, those 4 very popular line where it says form is empty, emptiness is form, form is not other than emptiness, and emptiness also not other than form. So there it talks about form. Okay, so particularly, of course, the whole sutra has the emptiness of many other phenomena, even non-associated compositional factor, how these are also explained to be empty. But in this particular 4-line formulation, form it talks about the 2 truths of the form. How this form on the conventional nature, it has, or conventional truth level, it has the many attributes which we explained, and then what is its ultimate nature? If you see through the ultimate analysis, then this form is empty. And then from the same emptiness of form, which is the ultimate nature, there is a possibility that this form, because it does not have any intrinsic nature, it to have a relative nature, a nature by dependence on the projection of mind. So therefore, this talks about the 2 truths of the form, whereas that is particularly about the 1 category of impermanent phenomena. I hope I have answered and not confused you.
Thank you. So nice. Now the second question is, आइए कहीं आप अपना नाम पहले बताइए 2 question और लेते नहीं because they are young scholars. It is meant for them, after all.
So
If we are speaking much,
yeah, we can use that in the lunch break or a tea break.
young people are full of questions. They should be respected. 2 question और लेते हैं lunch late होगा बाद में.
Yeah, so myself, Kishore.
Kishore.
Yeah, to put my question very short, basically I am quoting a statement by J. Krishnamurti where he states that mind is time and mind is suffering, and to live within the field of time is suffering. So what is implied in this statement? Because Buddhist philosophy talks about the nature and the essence of suffering, and is it possible to go beyond suffering? So how these 3 aspects, mind, time, and suffering, is related? Please.
Whom you want to answer?
Any of the guest speakers?
Is anyone
Or
else?
maybe anyone in the house can respond to this?
Is it? Mind, time and suffering. इसमें तो mind है तो suffering तो होगा ही. Time is the...
Why is it implied that mind is time?
Mind is time.
Yeah, this was the statement because...
Buddhism में तो ऐसा नहीं है mind is time.
Yeah, sure.
अच्छा, okay. Yeah, please, you advise, sir. पहले अपना advise कीजिए so that people...
Thought is time. Thought is time. Because thought is a material process happening in the brain cells, and it creates the psychological space in which it moves, and also creates the psychological time. So without thought at the deeper level, you cannot suffer. If you are suffering, it means thought is involved, mind is involved. Otherwise, there is no suffering.
Is okay? No, हाँ बाद में कीजिए आप, because this is very kind of a abstruse or kind of a very abstract kind of question. No, answer is not so easy to give us. Anyone else? Yes, you please. एक और लेंगे हम, दो एक लेंगे एक और. Yes, please.
Ben.
Whom you want to ask question? Ramanathan ji.
My question is,
Benla, please introduce yourself before.
my name is Ben Cantor. So my question is, that from what I understood from your talk, which might not be correct, so please correct me, is that Dyson posits the pervasiveness of the mind in the matter on the basis of the quantum choice, which is similar to the free will and so forth.
Questions are question.
Huh?
Straight.
Yeah. So my question is, how can the pervasiveness of the consciousness be posited on the basis of the choice? Because the mind also has the experience. So is the experience equated to the choice of free will? And if so, then why? Thank you.
The point is whether elementary particles' behavior, the quantum mechanical, quantum electrodynamic behavior of an elementary particle can be whether it can be related to the kind of consciousness that we exhibit. The statement of Dyson is that the quality of consciousness of human beings is the same basically as that of a quantum mechanical electron. That is the statement. So, but our consciousness also generates, memory. As he was asking, how is without memory you can't suffer. But time and memory are related. But that is going to a higher level of consciousness. The elementary particle is not having memory. It has, but a very elementary memory. It is not big enough. For example, a computer with a bigger memory can do much more things. You see, for example, the touch screen cannot be operated on a mobile phone which was 15 years ago, because the memory of that generation mobile phone was 1,000,000 times smaller, because to go into higher levels of memory and consciousness require a much bigger, entity. But at a rudimentary level, the consciousness of an electron is of the same quality as the higher consciousness of the human being.
Thank you.
That is the claim.
So good.
So that is
Partly you also got your answer to that, probably. Yes, last question. Which gentleman over there last? कौन ये सर कौन है? हाँ वो last one.
Hello. My question to Abhishek Maji, Dr. Abhishek Maji. Does time is a human-made concept to help us understand and organize our experience?
Can you repeat the question?
Yes. Does time is a human-made concept to help us understand and organize our experience?
I think physics is human-made. And if you were taking the time which I talked about there, you already showed that it's human-made and how it is constructed. Yeah, so it's human-made. That's the answer.
So time is exists only for human.
Well, as I am a human being, I can only talk about human beings, and if I stick to my experience, so it's human-made.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that, David House, for giving us this opportunity. Also very thankful for our 4 keynote speakers whose presentation was so beneficial for us, and also 3 of our distinguished scholars who have made their presentations. Thank you so much for the people who are persons, young scholars who have asked questions. And it is not necessary you must be satisfied with the answer. कोई बात नहीं. this सिलसिला चलते रहना चाहिए, ठीक है? But keep asking questions. अपने लिए भी औरों के लिए भी. Thank you so much for everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Please remain seated, professors and speakers. Yes, please remain seated. Yeah, so thank you very much, Professor Gang Ningiji, and very generous of you to take the 4 questions and 2 more questions. And to all the speakers on the dais for your profound teachings. And now I would like to request Professor A.C. Pandeyji, the chief guest of today's conference, would like to offer the kata and the souvenir to the respective chairperson and the speakers. Professor Gang Ningiji.
Thank you.
Professor R. Ramanathan ji.
Thank you.
Venerable Professor Dr. Pujala. Thank you, and Dr. Abhishek Manji ji.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor A.C. Pandeyji. Now we will recess for a lunch, and before we recess, I would like to make a humble announcement that this morning we have inaugurated a One Tibet House publication book, which is Quantum Physics, Brain Function, Modern Science and Buddhist Philosophy, that we held in 2018. So this is for sale, and today if you would like to buy, our publication has mentioned that it is 50% concession, and it is at the reception. And the lunch is at the Jargaran Hall, which is opposite to this hall. And first we will respectfully allow the speakers and the chief guests and the guest of honor, keynote speakers, to have the lunch, and then the participant can join.
Thank you.
Thank you.